I'm Nicole Maddoff, Director of Operations at Patriot Coffee Roasters.
And I'm Chris MacArthur, the owner of Patriot Coffee, and we're here in the lab, ready to talk about the French press. So Nicole, I noticed we have a different French press here.
Yeah, I broke the other one.
You broke the other one. All right.
Sorry.
So why should I brew with a French press? What makes this special?
Well, it's a great introduction to specialty coffee. It doesn't require a whole bunch of skill or know-how, so if you're brewing coffee at home for the first time and you want to elevate your experience from just a drip, then a French press is a great place to start.
So what can I expect from a cup of coffee that's brewed in a French press versus your standard Mr. Coffee drip brewer?
Yeah, so a drip brewer uses a paper filter. So a French press, since it's just the metal filter, you're gonna get a lot more of the fines and oils from coffee. So if you like a fuller body cup of coffee, then the French press is a good option.
What would be maybe some disadvantages to using a French press?
Well, they're pretty delicate, as we've seen.
Right.
The disadvantage is because of the lack of a paper filter, you can get a sludgy cup with a lot of sediment in it. So if you don't like that on your palate, then maybe you want to filter it through a paper filter.
Okay. Is there anything else that we can use this for other than brewing coffee?
Oh my gosh, you can do so many things with a French press. You can do cold brew, you can make tea, and I mean,
soup?
I wouldn't use my coffee French press for soup, but you could definitely, anything you need a strainer for. Make some stock, tomato sauce.
Pretty versatile then.
Yeah.
And are these things expensive?
No, it's like $30, $40, so it's a good entry level.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
For sure.
So it's called a French press. Tell me the story. Why the French press?
Yeah, well, there's actually a debate between Italians and the French on who actually invented it. So I'm not here to say it, but the legend goes that a Frenchman was on his daily walk, decided he wanted to stop and have a cup of coffee. So he built a fire and was boiling the water and realized, oh shoot, I forgot to add my coffee grounds. So when he added them, they were floating to the top and he couldn't strain it to get the coffee. And just by pure happenstance, an Italian merchant walked by selling, I don't know what, but he had a screen. And the Frenchman bought the screen, they used a stick to plunge it down, and then they poured the coffee and they were like, oh my God, this is the best coffee we've ever had in our lives.
So you're arguing that it was an Italian that really developed the French press.
I mean, it was his equipment.
Why did the French get credit for everything? French fries, those aren't French, are they?
I think they're Belgian.
Okay, so
it doesn't matter.
If you know the truth,
yeah,
comment below, let us know. That way we can set the record straight.
France versus Italy. Yeah. Tell us who's better.
And now that we know where this is from,
maybe.
What do I need to do? What sorts of variables do I need to consider in order to successfully brew a delicious cup of coffee with this?
Okay, so first things first, you gotta start with good coffee. Good coffee that's roasted to your taste, that's fresh, and that you're grinding fresh right before brewing. And then secondly, the water. So you always want to use clean, filtered water that's delicious just to drink.
Is tap water okay?
Tap water is not ideal for brewing coffee at all. And then another important piece is making sure that you're weighing everything out and being precise using a scale, and then also paying attention to the ratios. So for us, we like to use a 1:17 ratio. And
what does that mean?
That means that you use 1 part of coffee for every 17 parts of water. So for this recipe, we're going to use 40 grams coffee to 680 grams of water.
So I have to weigh my water?
Yeah.
Why?
It's better.
So what about grind size? If I'm grinding my own coffee at home, what do I want to shoot for in terms of that?
Right.
That grind.
So the standard for French press is coarse.
Okay. So if I wanted to order some coffee from Patriot and I don't have a grinder, would they grind
Yep.
coarsely for me?
You can grind it at whatever setting you want. But we do have a standard French press setting.
Okay, cool. So what's a typical kind of brewing method for the French press?
Yeah, so usually what we would do is coarse grind coffee. Standard is as coarse as your grinder will go. I don't really agree with that, but coarse grind coffee, put it in the French press, add the water, stir it up, and then just let it sit for 4 minutes, and then plunge it, and then you're ready to drink it.
But you don't sound like completely sold on that method.
I do not like the standard French press method, no.
So is there an alternative? Why don't you like the standard French
I
press
don't like it because there's so much sludge at the bottom of the cup. It coats your palate, you can't really taste the coffee, and I feel like in a way it's a little under-extracted too.
Sure. So that sediment basically is kind of like clogging up your taste buds.
Exactly.
And you don't even get to experience all that coffee has to offer. So.
Exactly.
So why don't you walk us through a better version of that brewing process?
Okay. So the method that we're going to be using today is the Hoffman technique, and it was developed by James Hoffman, who was a world barista champion, and he's just a great resource for all things specialty coffee.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got 40 grams of coffee already ground in the French press, and it's ground actually a little bit more like a medium grind size.
Oh, so somewhere in between a fine and a coarse?
Yeah, so I'm actually using the same grind size that I would use for Chemex.
Okay, so maybe a little bit more towards the coarser side?
A little coarser, but more of a medium, like table salt. And basically this technique is similar to what we do in the lab called cupping. You can save that for another video, but we're gonna be just adding the water and skimming off the top and then letting it sit for a little while.
Okay.
So I'm just going to add my water, and it was 680 grams, and the water is at 205 degrees. And I'll start my timer at the same time that I add the water.
Now you said 205 degrees. If I don't want to be that fussy about it, maybe what's kind of a good way to ballpark that?
You could boil water and then just let it sit off the heat for like 10 seconds. Now we're just gonna let this sit and steep for 4 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, it's the 4-minute mark. Normally at this time, you put the plunger on, plunge the coffee, and go. But we're not gonna do that.
You plunge, that just means to push this thing down.
Yes.
Okay.
Just strain it, but we're not doing that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna stir, and you can get down and smell the coffee too if you want. We're just gonna stir the grounds and let them settle to the bottom, and then you're gonna need 2 spoons and just skim off the foam and the oils that are on top. And now we're gonna wait an additional 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh, this is the longest.
It's worth it. It's so much better.
Why is it better?
On account of the mouthfeel.
Okay, so you're saying this additional time is gonna allow the sludge stuff, the coffee, the fine coffee grinds to fall to the bottom.
Yes.
And not end up at the bottom of our cup.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you can taste more of the coffee, experience more of the nuance, get a little bit more acidity, and it's just the better cup. So you can use this time to your advantage, do some dishes, get a little workout in, cook some breakfast.
What can I make in how many minutes do I have?
5.
Well, I have
4.5
now. Okay. I can fry an egg in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Some toast.
Egg and toast.
Salt and butter. That sounds good. I'm hungry. It's been like 8.5 minutes since we started brewing this. Is my cup of coffee gonna be cold by the time you brew it? By the time you pour my cup?
No.
No?
Got this little thermometer here. It is 167 degrees.
Oh.
Yeah, that's still really hot for
It's
drinking.
pretty hot. So generally, you pour your cup of coffee and you gotta wait 10 minutes anyway to drink it because it's scalding hot unless you add cream to it, which I don't recommend.
So it's just better just let all the flavors marinate in there.
Yeah. Marinate.
So we're just gonna put the top, the plunger, onto the French press, and we'll press the plunger in just so that it's resting on top of the coffee.
Okay.
If you press it any further, it's gonna stir everything back up that we just made sure was settling to the bottom.
Oh, I see. So now all those little fines are down at the bottom of the French press.
Yes.
And they're not going to get.
They're not gonna mix into our coffee.
At least that's what you're telling me.
That's the theory.
Okay. It does look clean.
Yeah, it's a lot more clear than a standard French press.
Do you think this is cool enough to drink?
It's gonna still be pretty hot.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, it's still hot. We're gonna give that a couple minutes. We'll come back to it.
This is just evidence
Yeah.
that this brewing method, you're not gonna end up with cold coffee.
Right.
Don't worry about that.
Okay. Okay.
You could even let it sit further.
You could? What would happen if I let that sit for another 4 minutes?
It would continue to extract.
What's that mean? So if the coffee becomes over-extracted, what would that taste like practically?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of acids and compounds in coffee. So when you're introducing water, it's pulling out flavor. There are good flavors in coffee and there are bad flavors in coffee. So
Yeah.
the longer that it's sitting in the water, the more likely you are to pull out the not so great flavors.
Okay.
So it might be bitter, might be sour,
Mm.
just kind of depends on the coffee.
Gotcha.
It's nice.
Yeah. It's surprisingly super clean on the palate.
Mm-hmm.
This is my first time ever having a French press made with this method, and I gotta say, there is definitely a difference.
Yeah,
A big difference.
it's a big difference.
I think the proof will be in if I can get to the bottom of my cup and not see
That
the
muddy
mud. You know?
And it's still got more body than what you would get with a Chemex or a
Right.
pour over. It's just not coating your palate in an unpleasant way.
Mm-hmm. So I'm near the bottom of my cup now, and I am seeing just the slightest bit of sediment down there.
Right.
But not near the amount that I would see if we were brewing just kind of our standard French press method. So, yeah, I mean, overall, having a little bit of that sediment in there gives it some more body. And just kind of gives it kind of like that full mouthfeel that you expect from a French press. I still got to experience all that coffee had to offer, so we didn't shortchange it by not brewing it correctly. So yeah, I would say that was a success. So that's the French press. Give it a shot at home and let us know what you think about it. And while you're at it, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you can get our future videos. So I think that's it. I'm Chris,
I'm Nicole.
and this is the Lab at Patriot Coffee. We'll see you next time.
Happy brewing.
Hi, I'm Rachel Ray, and I sell dog food now.
A little something to make you go, hmm.